Despite its apparent lack of recognition now, the original Pac-Man World was a hit when it was first released, and is still Gil Colgate's most well-received game. However, as many of you may know by now, I don't really agree with the critics often, and in this case, most of the fans don't either. Yes, there is a fan base. It's small, but passionate, and thankfully not insane. Most of the fans consider Pac-Man World 2 to be the best out of the 3 Pac-Man World games. Do I agree with them? Without a doubt! In fact, this is easily my favorite 3D platformer. The game starts off with the ghost sneaking into Pac Village, and cartoony hilarity ensues. Eventually, they get down to business and take the golden fruit from the tree in the center of the village. By doing this, they release Spooky, an ancient demonic ghost who's bent on wiping out the Pac race. And to be honest, he's one of my favorite video game villains.
At last, I am free from the confines of this accursed prison. You there, take these golden fruit that imprisoned me and follow me if you want to get rid of these Pac people forever!
Anyway, Professor Pac informs Pac-Man that he can imprison Spooky by collecting the golden fruit that were taken by the ghosts.
According to this book, our ancestors fought against this very evil. In ancient times, the great wizard Pac created a powerful potion that turned 5 fruit from Pac-Land into the golden fruit that was stolen today. Armed with these magical fruit and a great deal of bravery, Sir Pac-a-Lot faced the all-powerful ghost known as Spooky. Sir Pac-a-Lot defeated Spooky and imprisoned him. And he has remained there until now. Pac-Man, the golden fruit are in the hands of the devious ghosts, and Spooky is on the loose again. You must retrieve the golden fruit and defeat Spooky, or all of Pac-Land will be doomed.
The graphics are very simple, and at times a bit primitive, but they have a lot of charm and character. The textures especially are bright and colorful, while the models themselves vary in quality. Pac-Man's model, for example, appears to have a really high polygon count. However, some of the objects have a rather low polygon count. Thankfully, it doesn't ruin any of the charm of the game, but in comparison to other games out there like Star Wars Rogue Squadron 3, Rebel Strike, it's not really impressive. But the graphics do their job, and they are rather pleasing to look at, so I can't really complain too much. With the music on the other hand, I have to be entirely honest. This soundtrack is absolutely incredible, and that alone feels like an understatement. It's up there with games like Turrican 2 and Lair. It has some of my favorite music ever to grace a game. Each world has a theme, which is rearranged for each level in that world. Each arrangement feels different from the last, and the themes themselves are insanely memorable. That and the music does a really good job of fitting with what's happening in the game, and to a higher extent than most other game soundtracks I've listened to. So overall, on a presentation level, this game does a very good job. It has that kind of colorful and wondrous atmosphere that one would expect from a 3D platformer, but amplified several times over. However, what about the gameplay? If you couldn't tell by my bizarre reaction, this is, appropriately, the best thing about the game by far. In comparison to the original, there are several major differences. For starters, there is a heavy focus on free roaming and exploring your environments as opposed to backtracking. There's some backtracking here and there, but it's almost entirely optional. And when you do backtrack, you're often generously rewarded, so it ends up being a satisfying experience rather than an annoying one. Most of the time, the reward is pack.chain, which leads to either a new path, a secret area, or sometimes it just gives you better access to fruit and tokens, along with the pack dots you're already collecting. Not only that, but the variety is also simply amazing. However, this statement isn't just an application to the environments like in most games, that's also done very well. I say this mainly in application to the gameplay itself. Each environment, no scratch that, every stage utilizes different gameplay mechanics from the last. Each environment has its own unique hazards, and the other huge factor here is what you'll actually be doing throughout each stage. You'll be running, swimming, flying through the air, skating, and you can even get into a submarine tank and shoot things. Each one of these concepts is executed very well. Yes, even the swimming is really damn fun. This is one of the things that Pac-Man World 2 does better than almost every other game I have played. However, Pac-Man World 2's main strength is the platforming itself. Now, this may seem like a very basic element to be praising at first, but try to hear me out on this one. The platforming in this game can best be described as incredibly exhilarating. Often when jumping, you really get the sense that you're airborne. This mixed with long jumps, revamped bedoings, and falling platforms only amplifies that feeling. I think it's something you need to play in order to understand, and I can't really describe it very well beyond that. I'll just try to show you through some gameplay footage. This mixed with the varied gameplay make an incredibly fun experience that never gets old. Unlike games like Super Mario Galaxy 2, this game has the ability to remain fresh throughout the duration of the game without getting boring at all. The one stage that comes close, barely, is the submarine level. It is pretty long, but hey, they didn't make the submarine and all the according assets for nothing. That, and the different weapons you can pick up are really cool, it's just a matter of keeping them. So in the end, the last word to describe this game is repetitive, especially in comparison to some of the other platformers out there. The boss battles are also worth mentioning. Each of the ghosts have a robotic suit shaped like them, except for Blinky, who has his killer frog. I'm trying really hard not to make a big of a cat joke. Each of these robots have special abilities that the others don't have. The fifth boss is all four ghosts in this huge submarine tank. Then there's Spooky himself, but I'll get to that in a second. While the bosses aren't that hard to defeat once you know what you're doing, there is one boss that is just flat out brutal. Clyde. In fact, he knows it. He knows he's the hardest boss in the game, and takes a considerable amount of pride in that fact. His machine is practically invulnerable. The only weak spot is the cockpit, but you really don't have much access to it. You have to wait until he sets down to charge his energy, but in order to do this, you need to survive each of his attacks, which get more and more insane as the stage progresses. Plus, if you get in the air or just close to the edge of the platform, you'll fly back into the lava Castlevania style. That, and you have to be very careful where you move, seeing how Clyde's machine and the projectiles it fires leave behind hot steam. It's not a bad boss fight by any means, but dear lord is it hard! Anyway, almost all of the dialogue in the game is build up for the final boss fight with Spooky. As a child, I came up with all of these crazy ideas as to what the fight would be like, and it really surpassed any expectations I had. Oh lord, this fight is freaking epic. You have to avoid Spooky's attacks until he starts charging up for his more powerful attacks, and these attacks are pretty freaking awesome and can get really creative too. Not just things like meteors falling from the sky, but Spooky screwing around with the controls, making it really confusing as to which direction on the analog stick corresponds with what direction of movement, so you really don't want to give him the chance. The fight just gets more and more intense as you progress into it, giving you a huge sense of accomplishment when you finally do beat him. That, and I don't think I need to say anything about the environment. I love it! And just listen to that music! The ending is also really rewarding and fun to watch. It really makes you feel like you accomplished something while perfectly maintaining that wonderful cartoony atmosphere. However, that's not the end. There's a lot of replay value. You are encouraged to collect tokens throughout each stage, which grants you access to concept art, a music hall, and more importantly, the classic arcade games. Pac-Man is 10 tokens. I don't know why Pac-Attack is here instead of something like Pac-Land, but it's 30 tokens. Pac-Mania, my personal favorite, is 100 tokens. And Miss Pac-Man is how much? What's odd is that there are only 152 physical tokens. You get the last 28 through collecting the bonus tokens. You obtain these through completing time trials and getting 100% completions in each level. With some of the levels in particular, getting 100% can be really difficult, the skating and underwater levels to be more precise. And these, if you aren't perfectly precise, often the best thing to do is to commit suicide. And while the deaths are as cartoony and smoothly animated as all the other animations in the game, after a while, it starts to get to you. He just wanted the fruit! While the replay value can be an occasional source of very mild agitation, it does its job well. It's been almost a decade now, and I'm still playing this game like crazy. But while the arcade games are a great diversion, it's just such a fun game overall, even without the classics in here. Hell, I'd say that this isn't only my favorite game in the Pac-Man World series, but, well, it's my favorite Pac-Man game, period. That's right, I like this game more than any of the arcade games, though Pac-Mania does come close, but that's aside the point. The point is that if you like 3D platformers even a little bit, play this game now! Join me next time where I'll review Pac-Man World... There are ports of these two games to the Game Boy Advance, you know. Wonderful! Bye.